Hi, welcome to Nina in the Kitchen, where today I am making English muffins. I have tried different recipes for English muffins thinking if it's not better than what you can get in the store, why bother? I have come up with my recipe for sourdough English muffins. They are delicious. Now it's presumed that you already have a starter. If you don't, or if you would like to learn how to make it or what it's about, you can go to two links that I'm putting below, and I couldn't do any better or add to what they did, so I'm just going to link their videos below. Now, if you want a starter, you can buy some online, believe it or not. You can also, if you live near a bakery that makes true sourdough, they'll give you some. Just ask for a little bit of starter, they'll give it to you. So, okay, here we go. I am using 150 grams of my starter. That is 1 cup. Depending on your concentration of starter, some people like a thicker starter or thinner. That will depend on how much water you use for the rest of this. But you do want to go with unbleached flour and water that has been filtered. This is 1/2 teaspoon of, this is an instant yeast. This is barley malt extract. Barley malt extract is something that is low in glycemic index. You can substitute molasses or treacle, honey, agave syrup, anything like that. But if you bake a lot of breads, this is a great thing to have on hand. I'll show you the texture of it. It's really gloppy, but it's great to have on hand because it lends a certain chewiness and promotes browning to your bread. So in any bread where you have a sweetness, you can use this. We're going with 1 tablespoon. This is 6 ounces, 124 grams of water. And then I'm just going to stir this all together just to get it all mixed in before we start adding the flour. Now, all told, I'm going to go in with 480 grams, 4 cups of flour. This is a bread flour, and I found that using the bread flour and also that little bit of yeast will help boost the nooks and crannies in your English muffins. So 480 grams is in there, and again, you might have to play around with your water or flour depending on your starter. This goes on your machine with a dough hook. While this is churning, I'm going to put this on low speed. And while that's mixing, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons, that's 58 grams of butter. This is an unsalted butter. It's softened to room temperature. So you just throw the butter in, a little piece at a time. As soon as it gets incorporated, I'll add the next one. Okay, well, this is the last bit of butter that I'm putting in. This has actually taken 214 grams or 1 full cup of water. What I'm doing now is just, as you can see, it's a nice clean ball. I'm just going to knead that for a couple of minutes. I'm going to rest this. That's an autolyse. I'm going to rest this for 15 minutes, and in 15 minutes, I'll show you what it looks like. This magical thing happens when you autolyse. What happens here is that all of the flour becomes hydrated. The dough starts to relax and gluten strands form. So it's already starting to form now. So it's actually easier to handle after you let it autolyse. The next step for us is to add 2 teaspoons of salt. And I'm putting that around the periphery of the bowl. And then that way, as we mix this again, the dough will gently pick up that salt. I'm going to run this for about another 3 to 4 minutes. All of the kneading has been done. All that I'm going to do is cover this with a lid. I have fed bubbles. What I have in here is an unbleached white flour, a white whole wheat, and a rye flour, because that's how I make my sourdough bread. So that's all in here. The container has been cleaned. Bubbles will start to do Bubbles thing. And when that starts looking kind of swampy and bubbly, I put it in the fridge. One thing I should mention is that I used a room temperature water for this. Depending on your water temperature and your room temperature will depend on how long this takes to rise. This is about 1.5 hours, and it's finally doubled in size. So from here, very simple, I'm just going to put some flour down. You want to use as little flour as possible. And you know, another thing that will keep this from rising is the fact that it's been enriched with butter. Enriched doughs just take a longer time. Okay, so floured surface. Flour the top of this and the pin. And you're just going to roll this out to about anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. And that is about 5 millimeters to 10. 5 to 10 millimeters. I'm pushing this down so that it's not going to creep back on me. And then you also want to put a little flour on the bottom of your cutter. This cutter is 3.5 inches across, and then you just simply push down. You don't want to twist, because if you twist, what happens is you're going to smudge the sides, if you will. So just cut and roll it back and forth, and now you have one English muffin, or soon to be English muffin. I'm going to take some corn flour. You can use semolina, whatever you have. Sprinkle it down on a baking sheet and just let that sit there. Push down, shuffle, and I'm going to use this is my emergency backup bench scraper. The other one must be in the dishwasher. So there we go. Then you have these scraps. What you do is just push them all together, do a quick knead, roll it out again. And these are the scraps. I guess I can't do much with that. So here are your English muffins. These will get puffy. They'll stick to each other, so just make sure that they are not touching, but you do want them to rise somewhat. Now, you don't want them to go fully to 80% like you would with the bread. I'm going to let these rest for 30 minutes, and I'm just going to cover them with another sheet pan, just like that, just to make sure that no draft or anything hits those. In 30 minutes, we'll come back and we'll move on from there. Okay, it has been 30 minutes. I did twist one of these, and I can tell exactly which one it is because that little edge is pinched. I'm using some cornmeal just at the bottom of this pan. It'll be about 350 degrees, which is 160 Celsius. I choose cast iron for this. If you have an electric griddle, you can just set it for 350. You can see these have risen straight up. The other tools that I'm using, I just have a spatula and my emergency backup bench scraper. I also have a towel just to take out the cornmeal as it gets a little older in here and maybe burns. I'll sweep it out with this. And then some more backup cornmeal, and that's it. One thing that I have to mention is that when you cut these out, you can, at that point, wrap this tightly with like a plastic wrap or something and store that in the refrigerator overnight, because the longer these ferment, the tastier they will be. And then the next morning, bring it up to room temperature and then proceed with griddling them. This is going to be about 10 minutes on each side, and I'll show you what it looks like when they're ready to flip. It has been 10 minutes. This will take 10 to 12, and you very carefully flip it, and you can see it's nice and golden brown on the bottom. What's happening here is that this is cooking from the bottom up into these buns, and you can start smelling, oh, isn't that pretty? You can start smelling that bread is baking, even though it's just on a griddle. It's pretty amazing. We'll flip that one. But there are always hot spots and cool spots in a pan, so check them, just very carefully lift and check them halfway through, and you'll have to rotate them as well. I'm going to give this another 10 minutes on this side, and I'll see you when these are complete. It has been 12 minutes. Here's the first one. I wanted to find one of these that was easy for you to see. You see, this is the second side, and if you'll notice, there's a line right there, right around here. There's sort of a definitive line. That tells me that that has been cooked to that point. Some of these are a little more definitive than the others. There's a line here as well. But anyway, that's how you know that they're baked inside. So I'm going to just clean this cornmeal out of the pan and continue, and I'll see you at the end. Well, these are all ready. I still have 12. Started with 12, ended with 12. And what amazes me is how puffy these become. Fork splitting is really a thing. Now, if you can see, there's sort of a line right through the middle, and that's where you put your fork. If you were to use a knife on this, what happens is it just turns out to be like a slice of bread, and it's not really anything special. So I just kind of split that all the way around. And you have to wait until these are absolutely cool before you cut into them. Just like any bread, the cooling process is part of the baking process. So I am going to pop this in the toaster oven and get it nice and crispy, fresh out of the toaster oven. The butter is beginning to melt. I think a little jam on that would be perfect. Let's go in for a bite. It's crunchy. So if you think about an English muffin that you get in the store, there's a little tartness to it. I played around with buttermilk and other things, and it's the sourdough starter that gives it that little bit of special flavor. These are so delicious. I hope you try this. They're a lot of fun to make, and enjoy them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.